Imagine a world where the future of warfare, indeed, the very fabric of technological progress, was shaped not just by ingenuity, but by a chilling, desperate ambition. A world where, amidst the chaos and brutality of the Second World War, scientists and engineers, driven by an ideological imperative, were quietly developing machines that would remain unparalleled for decades. Were the Nazis merely mimicking their enemies, or were they in secret laboratories and hidden bunkers, forging a path to a future that even today seems almost unbelievable? This is not a tale of the familiar V-2 rockets or the early jet fighters, though their impact was undeniable. We are about to pull back the curtain on the forgotten Nazi machines, a hidden chapter of innovation so audacious, so far ahead of its time, that their true capabilities and the sheer audacity of their concepts remain shrouded in mystery, even 80 years later. These were not just weapons. They were radical departures from conventional thought, designs that pushed the very boundaries of physics and engineering, concepts that would only be realized by other nations long after the swastika had faded from the global stage. The technology born from this dark crucible, often crude and incomplete, nonetheless laid unsettling groundwork. It forced the world to reckon with new forms of conflict, new defensive strategies, and perhaps most importantly, it secretly accelerated the global technological arms race in ways we are only now beginning to fully comprehend. The mere existence of these projects, often conducted under extreme secrecy and pressure, raises a profound question. How much of our modern technological landscape, from stealth aircraft to advanced propulsion systems, owes an unspoken debt to the desperate gambles of a regime obsessed with absolute power and technological supremacy? Join us now as we embark on a journey into the shadowy world of forgotten genius and chilling ambition. From the earliest whispers of radical ideas to their surprising, often terrifying global impact, we will explore the untold story of the Nazi machines that were, undeniably, decades ahead of their time. Before the roar of experimental engines or the hum of high-voltage circuits, there was a fundamental human desire, the desire for an overwhelming, decisive advantage in conflict. For millennia, warfare had largely been a brute force endeavor, a clash of armies, a test of will and numbers. Yet, even in antiquity, the seeds of technological superiority were being sown. The simple spear, the hardened shield, the roaming siege engine, each represent an attempt to amplify human power, to extend reach, to overcome an opponent through means beyond mere muscle. The need was always clear: how to strike further, faster, with greater impact, and crucially, with less risk to oneself. The path to the truly ahead of its time began not in the secret labs of the Third Reich, but in the fertile minds of visionary thinkers across centuries, often dismissed as dreamers or madmen. Leonardo da Vinci, for instance, sketched flying machines and armored vehicles centuries before the physics and metallurgy could ever catch up. His ideas, though fantastical for his era, hinted at the fundamental desire for dominance through superior engineering. Fast forward to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The rapid advancements in industrialization, electricity, and chemistry ignited a new wave of thought. Visionaries began to ponder technologies that could transcend the limitations of conventional warfare. Could one build a weapon that flew without wings, or a vessel that moved silently beneath the waves, or even a projectile that could cross continents? This era saw the first, often crude, attempts to realize these audacious concepts. Early submarines were hand-cranked and dangerous, their capabilities severely limited. Primitive rockets were little more than glorified fireworks, wildly inaccurate and inefficient. Aircraft, when they first stuttered into the sky, were fragile wooden contraptions, their military potential barely conceived beyond reconnaissance. Yet each sputtering engine, each failed test flight, each sinking prototype contributed a crucial piece of data. They identified the immense technical hurdles, the need for lighter, stronger materials, for more powerful and efficient propulsion, for precise guidance systems, and for new energy sources. The sheer scale of the engineering challenge was immense, often requiring breakthroughs in multiple scientific disciplines simultaneously. The problem, then, was multifaceted: how to harness incredible power, guided with precision and deploy it with devastating effect, all while minimizing the risk to the operator. The early answers were often clumsy, sometimes comical, and frequently disastrous. But the very act of attempting these impossible feats slowly began to shape the required knowledge base. Universities conducted theoretical research, private inventors toiled in workshops, and governments, sensing the shifting tides of power, began to fund modest, often speculative projects. The stage was being set for an era where scientific theory and industrial might would converge, leading to a truly revolutionary and, in the wrong hands, terrifying leap forward. This slow, often frustrating, genesis laid the conceptual groundwork for the radical departures that would later emerge under the darkest of circumstances. The desperate circumstances of the Second World War, coupled with an almost fanatical belief in technological superiority, provided the dark crucible for these concepts to truly ignite. Amidst the chaos and resource scarcity, a select group of brilliant, often unheralded, engineers and scientists were given an almost unlimited mandate to create instruments of war that would utterly change the battlefield, bypassing conventional defenses and guaranteeing victory. These weren't mere refinements. They were audacious leaps, driven by a perverse logic that only extreme times could foster. Consider the work of individuals like Paul Schmidt and his pulse-edged engine, a deceptively simple design that promised unprecedented speed for cruise missiles. Schmidt, a self-taught engineer with a background in automotive design, had been toiling on pulse-edged concepts since the late 1920s. His initial motivations were purely aeronautical, a desire for efficient, high-speed propulsion. But with the war, his obscure work suddenly gained critical importance. The challenge was immense: how to build an engine that could rapidly cycle combustion without complex moving parts, generating powerful thrust at an incredibly low cost. His early prototypes were crude, noisy, and inefficient, prone to flameouts and structural failures. The technical breakthrough came in optimizing the resonant frequency of the combustion chamber and designing a system of simple, aerodynamic valves that could withstand the intense heat and pressure. It was a brutal process of trial and error, a symphony of explosions and shattered components, but Schmidt persevered, fueled by the promise of what his engine could deliver. Then there was the audacious vision of Hans Fiedler and his team at the German Navy's Torpedo Research Station. While the world focused on conventional submarines, Fiedler explored entirely new principles of underwater propulsion and sensing. His background in electroacoustics led him to investigate technologies that could make a torpedo not just faster, but smarter. The obstacle wasn't just propulsion, but guidance. How could a torpedo find its target silently, effectively bypassing defenses that relied on auditory detection? The breakthrough involved the pioneering use of active and passive sonar systems in a practical, miniaturized form. Early attempts were plagued by interference and unreliability, the primitive electronics struggling in the harsh underwater environment. But by integrating newly developed acoustic transducers and rudimentary electronic brains, Fiedler's team developed prototypes capable of acoustic homing. It was a revolution in naval warfare, a way for a weapon to listen for its prey and steer itself with deadly precision. The world's initial reaction to these nascent technologies was largely one of disbelief or dismissal. Allied intelligence, when they even caught whispers of such projects, often underestimated their potential, viewing them as impractical wonder weapons or desperate propaganda. But within the inner circles of the Nazi war machine, the prototypes, however flawed, ignited a dangerous optimism. They represented not just technical achievements, but symbols of a perceived technological superiority that would, they believed, turn the tide of the war. These were not just inventions. They were the terrifying harbingers of a future that had yet to arrive, born from ambition, desperation, and an unsettlingly advanced grasp of engineering principles. From these initial sparks, born of wartime urgency and radical vision, these ahead-of-their-time concepts began a frantic, often brutal evolution. The journey from crude prototype to mass adoption was fraught with technical nightmares, strategic shifts, and the relentless pressure of a collapsing regime. One of the most striking examples of this ascent was the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. While not entirely forgotten, its technological leaps were immense. The early designs in the late 1930s, spearheaded by Willy Messerschmitt himself, envisioned a fast interceptor. However, the true revolution came with the development of practical turbojet engines, primarily the Junkers Jumo 004, led by Anselm Franz. The challenges were monumental: metallurgy that could withstand extreme temperatures, fuel systems that wouldn't freeze at high altitudes, and the sheer complexity of manufacturing turbine blades to unheard-of tolerances. The first flight with jet power occurred in July 1942, a moment that changed aviation forever. Initially, its reception within the Luftwaffe was mixed. Some saw it as a bomber, others as a pure fighter. It was faster, far faster, than any Allied piston-engine aircraft. Its pilots reported astonishing performance, capable of easily outrunning Allied fighters. By 1944, the Me-262 was in full production, albeit limited. Its impact was immediate. Allied bomber formations, once relatively safe, now faced a new, terrifying threat that could slash through their escorts and attack at speeds they simply couldn't match. Despite its late introduction and limited numbers, the Me-262's very existence forced Allied designers back to the drawing board, fundamentally reshaping post-war aviation development. Simultaneously, the quest for unconventional ordnance led to another, even more chilling, evolution: guided missiles. While the V-1 buzz bomb, propelled by Schmidt's Posejet, was a terror weapon, it was essentially an advanced cruise missile. The true leap lay in the V-2 rocket, designed by Werner von Braun and his team at Peenemünde. This was not a glorified artillery shell. It was the world's first long-range ballistic missile. The initial concept, a weapon capable of striking targets hundreds of miles away, emerged in the early 1930s. The breakthrough came with the development of large, powerful liquid propellant rocket engines capable of generating immense thrust, coupled with pioneering inertial guidance systems that used gyroscopes to steer the rocket along a pre-programmed trajectory. Early tests in the late 1930s were often failures, exploding on the pad or veering wildly off course. The immense technical hurdles included precise fuel flow regulation, engine cooling, and the challenge of stabilizing a massive projectile traveling at supersonic speeds. By October 1942, the A-4, later V-2, successfully reached space, a staggering achievement decades ahead of its time. The world's reception, particularly in London, was one of sheer terror. There was no defense against it. The V-2 struck without warning, a silent, unseen menace from the heavens. Its impact on the global arms race was profound, kick-starting the Cold War ballistic missile programs of both superpowers, directly leading to the space race, and defining strategic warfare for the next half-century. Beyond the well-known, even more radical concepts were evolving. Efforts were being made in infrared night vision technology. Early attempts by companies like AEG involved bulky, highly experimental systems for tanks and infantry. The core problem was converting very faint infrared radiation into a visible image, requiring sophisticated optics and sensitive electronic tubes. By 1944 to 1945, the Germans had deployed limited numbers of Vampire infrared sights for STG-44, assault rifles, and even larger units for Panther tanks. While cumbersome and with limited range, these were the direct ancestors of modern night vision goggles, giving a decisive, terrifying advantage in nocturnal engagements, a capability the Allies would not field widely for many years. This quiet revolution in sensing technology fundamentally changed how engagements could be fought under the cover of darkness. Concurrently, the Luftwaffe pushed the boundaries of aviation stealth. While not stealth, as we understand it today, the Horten Ho 229 flying wing bomber fighter was designed with a reduced radar cross-section in mind. Brothers Reimar and Walter Horten, visionary aircraft designers, believed in the efficiency of the tailless flying wing. They integrated carbon-impregnated plywood in the wing skin to potentially absorb radar waves. The idea was to create an aircraft that was not only incredibly fast, but also difficult to detect. The first jet-powered prototype flew in March 1944. While only a few prototypes were built and never saw combat, the Ho 229's advanced aerodynamic design and its experimental radar reduction techniques were revolutionary. Allied intelligence, upon discovering the remaining prototypes after the war, immediately recognized its futuristic nature. Rival aviation powers, particularly in the United States, meticulously studied its design, directly influencing the conceptual development of post-war flying wing aircraft, and eventually modern stealth technology. The concept of an aircraft, designed from the ground up to evade detection, was planted here, decades before its time. These technologies, from the operational Me-262 NV-2 to the nascent night vision and stealth experiments, were met with a mix of awe and terror. Were developed in a desperate race against time, often with forced labor and under immense pressure. They pushed the boundaries of scientific understanding and engineering capability, fundamentally reshaping the trajectory of post-war military and technological development. Each milestone, whether a successful flight, a devastating impact, or a promising prototype, underscored a chilling truth. Even in their defeat, the forgotten Nazi machines had irrevocably altered the course of innovation. While many of these Nazi technological marvels remained prototypes or were deployed in limited numbers, their true revolution came not in widespread wartime adoption by the Third Reich, but in their post-war legacy and the subsequent man-stramming by the victorious Allies. The moment of explosion into the mainstream wasn't a sudden burst during the war, but a slower, more insidious infiltration into global consciousness and strategic planning after the fall of the Third Reich. Why then? The answer is multi-layered. Firstly, the sheer audacity and demonstrable proof of concept provided by these German efforts shattered previous technological ceilings. Before the V-2, intercontinental ballistic missiles were science fiction. After it, they were an imminent, terrifying reality. Before the Me-262, jet combat was a theoretical advantage. After it, it was the undeniable future of aerial warfare. Secondly, the massive intellectual capital captured by the Allies, engineers, scientists, and their vast caches of research documents provided an unparalleled shortcut. Both the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in frantic efforts, like Operation Paperclip, to acquire German expertise in technology. This effectively transplanted decades of advanced research directly into their own nascent military-industrial complexes, eliminating years of independent R&D. It was governments, specifically the burgeoning superpowers of the Cold War, that truly led the charge. The post-war geopolitical landscape, defined by a bitter ideological struggle and an intense arms race, provided the perfect crucible for these technologies to flourish. Ballistic missiles, born from the V-2, became the ultimate deterrent, reshaping global diplomacy and creating the terrifying concept of mutually assured destruction. Entire industries emerged to support their development, from advanced metallurgy to inertial guidance systems, fundamentally altering the focus of national scientific endeavors. Similarly, jet propulsion, initially refined in Germany, rapidly revolutionized air travel and combat. Within a decade of the war's end, commercial airlines were flying jets, shrinking the world and fundamentally changing global communication and commerce. In the military, jet fighters and bombers became the standard, rendering vast fleets of propeller-driven aircraft obsolete almost overnight. This shift wasn't just about speed. It changed tactics, design philosophy, and pilot training on a global scale. The very soundscape of our world changed with the omnipresent roar of jet engines. Even the more experimental technologies, like infrared night vision, quietly influenced specialized military units, though bulky and rudimentary in German hands. The underlying principles were refined, miniaturized, and eventually became standard equipment for nocturnal operations, giving a decisive advantage and changing how night battles were conceived and fought. These forgotten machines, therefore, didn't just transform warfare. They fundamentally altered the post-war world order, driving an unprecedented technological arms race and paving the way for innovations that would define the latter half of the 20th century. In the last 20 to 30 years, the direct descendants of these once radical German concepts have not merely evolved. They've diversified into ubiquitous technologies, often so integrated into our daily lives and military capabilities that their origins are easily overlooked. The relentless march of microelectronics, advanced materials, and computing power has taken what were once clumsy, pioneering prototypes and transformed them into sleek, hyper-efficient systems. Consider the ballistic missile. From the single, terrifying V2, we now have an entire spectrum of sophisticated weaponry. Intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, form the bedrock of nuclear deterrence, capable of striking anywhere on the globe with pinpoint accuracy. Submarine-launched ballistic missiles, SLBMs, provide a crucial second strike capability, ensuring no first strike goes unanswered. But the diversification goes further. Cruise missiles, now propelled by highly efficient turbofan engines and guided by GPS and terrain-following radar, are precision instruments that can loiter, retarget, and strike with surgical precision, a far cry from the V-1's rudimentary guidance. The key players are no longer just the US and Russia, but a growing number of nations possessing advanced missile technology, from China and India to various European powers and emerging states. The scale of impact is immense. They remain the ultimate expression of coercive power in international relations, shaping alliances, deterring aggression, and constantly driving defensive measures. The jet engine, once a German secret weapon, now powers virtually all commercial and military aircraft. In the last 2 decades, we've seen incredible refinements. Engines that are vastly more fuel-efficient, quieter, and more powerful than their predecessors. The technology has diversified from powering massive airliners and supersonic fighters to enabling drones of all sizes, from surveillance UAVs to weaponized unmanned combat aerial vehicles, UCAVs. Companies like GE Aerospace, Rolls-Royce, and Pratt & Whitney dominate this global industry. The core principles remain, but materials, like ceramic matrix composites and advanced aerodynamic designs, have pushed efficiency limits. The environmental issue of carbon emissions from jet fuel, along with the noise pollution, are significant contemporary challenges driving research into sustainable aviation fuels and electric propulsion, a diversification the original inventors could never have foreseen. Perhaps most subtly, but equally profoundly, night vision and thermal imaging have moved from clunky military curiosities to widespread application. The early Nazi IR experiments have given way to compact, high-resolution night vision goggles, NVGs, for infantry, advanced targeting pods for aircraft, and even thermal cameras used in firefighting, law enforcement, and search and rescue operations. Companies like L3 Harris and Elbit Systems are at the forefront, pushing the boundaries of low light and thermal sensitivity. This technology now grants unparalleled situational awareness in darkness, fundamentally altering surveillance, security, and tactical capabilities across almost every domain. Finally, the rudimentary stealth principles embodied by the Horton Flying Wing have exploded into an entire field of military aviation. The last 20 years have seen the widespread deployment of fifth-generation stealth fighters like the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning II, and strategic bombers like the B-2 Spirit, with the B-21 Raider now on the horizon. These aircraft are designed from the ground up to be virtually invisible to radar, integrating advanced materials, precise shaping, and sophisticated electronic warfare systems. The impact is a complete reshaping of aerial combat and strategic penetration. The ethical debate here often centers on the cost versus necessity of such advanced, often offensive, platforms, and the potential for an accelerating arms race and signature reduction technologies. These once ahead of their time Nazi concepts, born in an era of global conflict, have become cornerstones of our modern world. Their evolution a testament to relentless human ingenuity, often fueled by the very darkest of motivations. The world before these innovations, particularly the V-2 and the Me-262, was a fundamentally different place. Before the ballistic missile, the threat of attack was largely confined to the range of aircraft or conventional artillery. After it, no place on Earth was truly safe from a sudden, unseen strike. Before the jet engine, aerial combat was a dogfight of propeller-driven machines, limited by piston power. After it, the skies became a realm of incredible speed and strategic reach. The change wasn't incremental. It was a quantum leap. Compressed into mere years, these technologies permanently altered the very fabric of warfare and geopolitics. The ballistic missile gave birth to the age of nuclear deterrence, where the fear of unimaginable destruction kept superpowers from direct conflict, but also cast a perpetual shadow over humanity. It led directly to the space race, as the same rocket technology that could deliver a warhead to a distant city could also launch satellites and, eventually, humans beyond Earth's atmosphere. Without the V-2's blueprint, the initial American and Soviet space programs would have been set back years, if not decades. The jet engine irrevocably changed air travel, both military and civilian. It ushered in the era of mass international travel, shrinking the globe and facilitating rapid economic and cultural exchange. In military terms, it led to the development of sophisticated air forces capable of projecting power across vast distances, fundamentally altering military strategy and logistics. The legacy of speed and efficiency in the air, born from those frantic wartime designs, is still felt every time a commercial airliner takes off or a fighter jet screams across the sky. Even the more specialized innovations like night vision and stealth principles have had a profound, if less visible, impact. Night operations, once fraught with extreme danger and uncertainty, became tactical advantages. The concept of signature reduction, of making military platforms less detectable, moved from an experimental theory to a core tenet of modern defense design. Ultimately, these were not just isolated inventions. They were turning points. They forced humanity to grapple with unprecedented destructive power, but simultaneously unlock pathways to explore space, connect continents, and gain new perceptions of our world. Born from a dark ambition, their technological ripple effects continue to shape our present and define the possibilities of our future, serving as a stark reminder of how profound and often ethically complex the legacy of innovation can truly be. So, what's next for the descendants of these revolutionary, yet often terrifying technologies? The journey is far from over. In the realm of ballistic missiles, current research and development are focused on next-generation materials for lighter, more resilient airframes, and highly sophisticated guidance systems that are increasingly resistant to electronic jamming and cyber attacks. Hypersonic glide vehicles, capable of maneuvering at speeds over Mach 5, are emerging as a new frontier, rendering existing missile defense systems potentially obsolete. Experts predict a future where missiles aren't just about delivering a warhead, but about precision global strike, reconnaissance, and even space launch capabilities on demand, blurring the lines between military and commercial applications. Could we see a future where a parcel is delivered to the other side of the world by a suborbital hypersonic glider in minutes? The engineering challenges are immense, but the conceptual seeds are already sown. For jet propulsion, the push is overwhelmingly towards sustainability and extreme efficiency. We're seeing intense R&D in sustainable aviation fuels, SAF, derived from waste products or synthetic processes, aiming for net zero carbon emissions. Electric and hybrid electric propulsion for aircraft, once a fantasy, are rapidly becoming viable for smaller aircraft, and research into larger configurations is underway. Revolutionary engine designs, like open rotor engines or even entirely new thermodynamic cycles, promise unprecedented fuel efficiency. Will the skies of 2050 be filled with silent electric aircraft or hybrid jets that barely sip fuel? The challenges of battery weight and power density are formidable, but the drive for cleaner, quieter air travel is undeniable in night vision and thermal imaging. The focus is on increased resolution, reduced size and power consumption, and fusion capabilities. Imagine glasses that seamlessly overlay multiple spectral views, infrared, low light, even augmented reality data directly onto your field of vision in real time. This isn't just for soldiers anymore. It's moving into autonomous vehicles, smart city surveillance, and even medical diagnostics. The future holds the promise of superhuman sight, allowing us to perceive our environment in ways previously unimaginable, perhaps even seeing heat signatures through walls or identifying chemical compositions from a distance. And then there's stealth technology. While the basic principles of shaping and radar-absorbing materials remain, the future lies in adaptive stealth, surfaces that can dynamically change their radar cross-section, perhaps even altering their thermal signature in real time. Further, integration with advanced electronic warfare and cyber capabilities aims to create platforms that are not just hard to detect, but actively invisible to enemy sensors, or even capable of mimicking other objects. The challenge is immense, pushing the boundaries of material science and artificial intelligence. Could future conflicts be fought by machines that are literally ghosts in the system? Or will countermeasures eventually catch up, leading to a perpetual technological cat-and-mouse game? These innovations, born from the urgent crucible of war, continue to evolve at an astonishing pace. They represent both the incredible potential and the profound ethical dilemmas of human ingenuity. How will these advancements shape our world in the coming decades? And what new, unforeseen challenges and opportunities will they bring? From the desperate ambition of wartime, Germany emerged a set of technological leaps: the ballistic missile, the jet engine, nascent night vision, and early stealth concepts that irrevocably altered the course of human history. These were not just incremental improvements, but profound paradigm shifts born from intense pressure and startling foresight. Though many remain prototypes in their original context, their underlying principles and captured brilliance kickstarted decades of innovation, shaping everything from global power dynamics to the way we travel, see in the dark, and conduct modern warfare. These innovations highlight a crucial truth, even from the darkest chapters. Human ingenuity, for better or worse, pushes relentlessly forward. The legacy of these forgotten Nazi machines is not just in their destructive potential, but in how they accelerate our journey into the technological age. They forced us to confront new realities, sparking an arms race that simultaneously drove space exploration and redefined our understanding of speed and stealth. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into a compelling, often unsettling chapter of innovation. If this journey through the shadowed paths of technological breakthroughs resonated with you, please like this video, share it with others who might find it equally fascinating, and most importantly, comment your thoughts below. What do you find most astonishing about these developments? And for more deep dives into the unexpected corners of history and technology, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell.